Good evening. My name is Reverend Jim Webb. Welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. There is one mind. That mind is full of all of the intelligence of the universe. There is one love. That love is the all-encompassing, unconditional love that permeates all things. There is one heart of love, and we are all a part of it, and we have never been apart from it. This one mind, one heart, one love, contains all of the possibilities and probabilities that are unlimited in nature. And we can create any and every possibility. We just have to be willing. And all of these possibilities can be different aspects of prosperity. Financial prosperity, relationship prosperity, vocational prosperity, logistical prosperity, spiritual prosperity, emotional prosperity. They're all available to us in unlimited supply. And because we are all a part of the one mind, the one heart, the one love, the one energy, we have the power to create all of the prosperity we desire, or we have the power to deny the prosperity we desire. And that choice is up to us. So here on the Miracle of Prosperity, we use the teachings of A Course in Miracles and many other teachings to help us allow the prosperity that is available to all of us. And each week, we either learn how to cultivate an aspect of prosperity, or we learn how to release a blockage to the prosperity that already exists so that we can allow it in. So today, we're going to work to cultivate an aspect of prosperity that can really help us to create even more in every way. We're going to learn how to cultivate compassion, and we're going to discuss that. You might ask, well, why is compassion so necessary for our prosperity? Well, the key to that is in the intro. In the intro, we talked about the power to deny the prosperity that God wills for us. And one of the ways that we deny the prosperity that God wills for us is when we are judging ourselves, condemning ourselves, withholding from ourselves, punishing ourselves, or causing ourselves undue struggle. Now, quite often this is unconscious. No one wakes up in the morning and says, let's see, how many ways and how many times today can I make my life more difficult? No, we don't do that. But there may be unconscious teachings, unconscious beliefs, unconscious habits, unconscious forms, and unconscious energy patterns that cause us to withhold our good. And when we are withholding from ourselves, judging ourselves, punishing ourselves, or causing ourselves unnecessary struggle, it is because of a lack of compassion. And in order to make our lives easier and to allow ourselves more prosperity, it is important to cultivate self-compassion. The lack of compassion says no to the yes God offers. Self-compassion says yes to the yes God offers, and thus allows us more prosperity. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. And when I say we, some of you I know are already smiling. I can just imagine the smiles on your faces because you know what's coming next. One of our favorite guests, Edward Miller, author of Soul Power, dear friend. He is with us tonight. And we're so glad to have you, Ed. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm always glad to share time with you. And I love this program.
Yes. Ed is a wonderful friend. I must disclose, Ed is a dear friend. We had a ball at lunch today. And we always have a ball when we hang out. And he is a wise and wonderful teacher, a brilliant, I can't call him a metaphysician because he's so much more than a metaphysician. He's a brilliant spiritual teacher in many realms. And he is a brilliant proponent of Ho'oponopono and so many other things that help us to develop compassion for ourselves. So, Ed, my brother, talk to us about compassion. What do you think compassion is?
I appreciate that question. I think about that often. I think about how we spend so much of our time being in conflict with ourselves, judging ourselves, uh, finding things that are inadequate, and holding back love for ourselves. And I'm really realizing right now that I've got to take my own heart in my own hands and be loving to myself in every way possible, and be very consciously aware of when I'm not that, when I am being um, unsupportive and loving with myself. And we all do it. We all spend a lot of time in judgment and in assessment and not in love and appreciation for ourselves. I mean, it's so loving yourself is a very moment by moment awareness. It's not my intention this morning is to love myself, and I'm going to get my hair did, and I'm going to get my new shoes on. No, loving yourself is the moment by moment awareness when we're not being kind to ourselves, when we're not
Yes.
being patient with ourselves, when we're on the hook and not being forgiving to ourselves. And it's looking at
Yes.
everything, being wide awake and being aware of
Mhm.
that internal conversation that we continually have all day long with ourselves.
Yes. So in your view, compassion is putting the spotlight of love on those parts of our consciousness where we have judged ourselves, denied ourselves, hurt ourselves, punished ourselves, or withheld from ourselves. And I love what you said when you said, take your heart in your hands.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little more about that.
Well, when I say take your hearts into your hand, we've got to feel our centeredness. We have to feel our groundedness and be aware sometimes we get lost in all kinds of stories. When we can just hold our own heart, be the holder of our own heart, it's a beautiful moment. It's an intimate moment. Developing
Yes.
intimacy with yourself is a
Mm,
whole new way of being. We're used to having
mm,
intimacy with others. Oh, I love him and he makes me feel like this. But what do we feel about ourselves? How do
yes.
we care for ourselves? How are we
So
aware? Yes, go on.
if I were a Reiki master and I said I'm going to take my heart in my hands, I would take the energy of the universe that is an infinite supply, that is unconditional love, and I would apply it to myself, apply it to my heart, apply understanding, apply empathy, apply compassion for myself, understand myself, accept myself, embrace myself with the transformative energy of love. Is that what you mean by take your heart in
Yeah,
your hand?
I just like everyone else, I go through life and I get triggered. My emotions
Yes.
get triggered from situations and circumstances. Often there are moments when I feel out of sorts or
Mhm.
agitated, and I'm always able to get back to the root of what's going on here. And it's often a moment of judgment about myself.
Mhm.
And when I can be aware that, I'm not always being loving and that I somehow
Mhm.
have some critique of my behavior, of my um, of my thinking, because that's a lot of it. It has to do with our thinking. We don't want to believe we even think certain thoughts. When your mind is a monkey mind and you're thinking about everything and everything's coming up, none of that is wrong. And we have to start running from ourselves and be aware and slow things down and be aware when we have the monkey mind and be aware when we find ourselves not always being kind to ourselves. Be aware, because in that awareness is the opportunity for love to come through and patience.
Yes, and patience.
Yeah.
Yes. And empathy for ourselves, understanding for ourselves, unconditional acceptance of ourselves. There's some things that I do, and there may be some things that you do too, when you finally, like the old song by the Stylistic says, stop, look, and listen to your heart and what it's saying. One of the things I do is I say, I will not judge myself for anything in any way. I will not punish myself for anything in any way. I will not withhold from myself for anything in any way. And I thank God for causing me to release self-judgment, self-condemnation, and the will to hurt myself as the beloved of God. I will not hurt the beloved of God. I will not punish the beloved of God. I will not deny the beloved of God the gifts God wills for the beloved of God. And sometimes that helps me. It talks me off the ledge. What tools do you use to talk you off?
Well, you know what? I'm very, because I try to be self-aware. I can feel agitation in my spirit. I can feel feeling anxious in my. I can feel that, and often that feeling can tie to a story of dissatisfaction, of just judgment, but when I can start to be aware of feelings when they're ignited and not take them into stories and just allow myself to breathe and allow that energy just to flow through me, it takes me to another moment. Another moment where I get a chance to, be aware of the love instead of the judgment. Be aware of what were you saying?
Oh, so you center yourself and you allow the calming energy of grace and the calming energy of peace and the calming energy of light and the calming energy of love to soothe that place that you've become aware of. Is that right?
You know what I call it? I call it my neutral zone. In the neutral zone, there is no judgment. There is no assessment. There's nothing wrong in the neutral zone. So to get to the neutral zone, often I have to, in the midst of my overwhelming feelings of either anxiety or stress or whatever, I have to be willing to get centered and take a breath. And take a few breaths sometimes. Sometimes energy is overwhelming. That breath, that moment gives me an opportunity for a new perspective.
Is it like when you push the restart on your computer button?
Yeah, it's a reboot.
Okay. So a new breath brings in new energy, new oxygen, new thoughts, and it cleanses. Is that accurate?
Yes. And it lets my mind let go of whatever story it was ready to cling to. Have you ever been in the mood, Reverend Jim, where you find you've been triggered, you've been emotionally engaged with some sensation, and you know that you're this close to grabbing a story and getting caught up in it?
Oh, I love that. It's something outside is touching the story that I forgot that I had inside of me. For example, as we were discussing at lunch today, my December 24th, 1970 story, and something outside of me was grabbing onto the remnants of that story in my consciousness and triggering me into that space again. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And you know what's very interesting? Those stories have a fragrance to them. So when we start to smell that fragrance, we often get intoxicated by it. And once we get intoxicated by this fragrance, we feel it's our righteous duty to get caught up in a story that often is not loving, It's often not in our best interest. It's often have a judgment attached to it.
And most often it's not true.
Oh, it's never true. It's never true.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
breath and the moment and that neutral space that I believe that I am allows me to release it into space. It allows me to realize the truth of myself as that space, instead of the story that I'm being intoxicatedly attracted to.
Yes.
I mean,
We were talking about this.
we all have these intoxicating stories that
Yes.
send us into a rage.
We're addicted to them because there's patterning within our energy patterns. Just like when the mailman walks across your lawn every day and he wears a hole in the grass, there's a patterning there that makes it easy for us to go down that path. And we get addicted to it. We feel righteous indignation. We actually feel alive more in our stories than we do in the neutral zone, because the neutral zone is strange for us. So we have to cultivate. We have to cultivate that neutral zone, and we have to cultivate feeling compassion for ourselves. We have to practice it, right?
But, Reverend Jim, have you noticed that righteous indignation starts to stink?
Uh-huh.
It has a stinky
it's
smell.
odious.
I mean, when we're caught up in it, it's raging through our mind.
And we feel alive like eating a bowl full of sugar junk food, but
that really good.
It feels really good, but then we realize the hollowness of it. And we realize that when we are in our story, we've cut off the light. There's a lesson in A Course in Miracles: grievances hide the light of God within me. So when we're in grievance, when we're in our story, when we are in our righteous indignation, we're all in a tizzy. And the light within us that is our truth diminishes almost to nothingness.
I was, I come home from my office earlier this week, and I was in a mood. I knew I was in a mood, but I didn't tie it to anything. But I came in the house, and my wife, who I adore, was in a mood to have a conversation and talk. Now, I really didn't want to talk. I really wanted to take a moment to get to the neutral space. And all of a sudden, she was just nothing. She wasn't saying anything negative. She was just talking stories and being available to me and wanted to be intimate conversations. Well, all of a sudden, I felt overwhelmed. I said to her, I said, I need space right now, baby. I need to connect with myself and ground myself again. So can you please allow me some time to ground with myself again, and then we'll get back together. Now, just because she's my wife, she didn't take that very well. But she left me alone for about 20 minutes. I allowed myself to just kind of collect myself. I sat outside on my patio and I collect with the night sky. And all of a sudden there was a shift. I remembered that I have a wonderful wife. And she wasn't getting on my nerves. It was me getting on my nerves. And at that point, I feel like, oh my God, I want her to know how much I love her. And that's when I was able to shift out of that intensity, that feeling of I needed to have, I wanted that space, to the remembrance that, I'm blessed and I have a wonderful wife, and that I just needed some space in order to reclaim myself as space.
Okay.
And then the love is there.
Okay, beautiful. So if I hear you correctly, to summarize one aspect of this wonderful conversation, one of the ways to cultivate compassion is to give yourself permission to breathe and take a break, to breathe and reset, to breathe and remember, to breathe and recalibrate, to breathe and allow God into the breath. Is that accurate?
We can't breathe and try to figure things out.
Yes.
Because that's more of the same problem.
Yes.
But we can breathe and get grounded again.
Yes, there's a lesson in the course. Yes, there's a lesson in A Course in Miracles. I will be still and listen to the truth. And what that lesson tells me is I've been listening to stories and they have me enraged. I've been listening to stories and they've got me on a sugar high of righteous indignation. But when I am still, I will listen to the truth.
Yes.
And the truth says, be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes.
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 So we're going to talk about some other strategies for cultivating compassion on the other side.
Yeah, I
of the
want to
break.
share it when we come back. I want to share another one. I think it's very important to get grounded again also.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I look forward to hearing it, and so does the audience on the other side of the break here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with the Miracle of Prosperity and Edward Miller, author of Soul Power and powerful spiritual teacher. Now, Ed, you had another technique that you were going to share with us on how to help cultivate self-compassion.
Yeah, we were brought into this dimension with bodies, physical bodies, and most of us take it for granted. But one of the things that we have to learn to do is to have practices and processes where we get back into our body. It could be taking a walk every day without music, just walking and paying it like a walking meditation. It could be, I'm a swimmer. I'm very much about doing the Ho'oponopono when I'm swimming and moving through the water and feeling myself grounded with water. It could be beating a bag. It could be kickboxing. It could be something as simple as knitting, watching your hands move and slowing your mind and body down so that you're watching your hands create with knitting and crocheting. But if we don't spend more time slowing ourselves down and getting back into our body, we're going to stay caught up in our thinking, in our minds. So
And in our stories.
Yes, I'm a real advocate of doing whatever we can to get back into our bodies and slow our minds down. It's mandatory. And I don't care if what you do. It doesn't really matter. I'm not suggesting running. I'm not suggesting swimming. I'm suggesting you find your practice that allows you to ground yourself back into your own body. And that slowing down also is a tool for allowing you to have compassion for yourself, allowing you to have a new perspective, allowing yourself to be aware of your heart open to receive new inspiration and new ideas.
Okay. Grounding for self-compassion.
Yes.
Now, do you have any ideas or techniques for directing the light of God to specific parts of you that are calling out for compassion? And how do you find those parts of you that are calling out for compassion?
You mean in my body or in my consciousness?
In your consciousness.
Wow, that's a beautiful question. Yeah. You and I talked about at lunch today how all of us have childhood wounds that are still raw. And you know what? They're going to be raw our whole lives. They're actually opportunities for us to heal. But they're going to be there when we do feel triggered by a childhood wound. Instead of, making it wrong, I don't want to be like that, or I don't want to feel that. Instead of going to that kind of conversation, allow yourself to be aware. And the emotions that come through, allow them to be expressed, not with the story, not with behaviors, but more with the energetic expression to be allowed to move through you without resistance, without judgment.
Yes.
And what you'll see how you'll be ready to move to the next energy, the next moment, in a much more graceful and beautiful way. But if
I'd like to relate that to what you said earlier, how when you got home and your wife was wanting to engage you, and you just needed a chance for energy to move so that light could move in.
Well, I could have easily made her my problem.
Yes.
I could have easily said, she's invading on my space. I don't have any, there's so many stories I could have taken that to. I resent that I can't walk in the house without having to being yapped at. I mean, there's so much opportunity to get stories to cling to that are, that are judgmental and intense and sometimes angry and aggressive.
And tasty.
Well, yeah, with that righteous indignation is always tasty. But
yes.
I know, because I've been married for 39 years. Did I say 30? Yeah, 39 years, 40 years in June, that, my marriage is successful because I don't let all that crap out. I don't dump all that on her. I ground myself. Mm-hmm. I start to be aware of my breath again. Mm-hmm. And it allows me, to give myself the space, allowed me to move through things without making them problematic for me.
Yes, and that's the point I wanted to tease out a little bit more. Emotions move through you. Mote means to move. E means from. Emotions mean moving from. Feelings moving from you, creating a void so that new feelings of love, new feelings of light, new feelings of love, new feelings of peace.
And they will come, by the way.
Fill that vacuum. Go ahead.
No, those new feelings are there. And when we can get out of our minds are just filters that keep us from love. So when we can allow that filter to move forward, those clouds to keep moving, the love is always there. It's
like the sun.
There.
Let's work with that for a moment in a way that we can all relate. Like the sun. Okay, you might have an emotion that's like a cloud. It temporarily blocks out the sunshine of your mind and the sunshine of your love. But you know that cloud is going to move. You know that the wind is going to blow very gently, and it's going to blow that cloud away, and the sun will always be there. So in other words, love is always there. Our emotions may get clouded for a moment, and we may not be aware of love's presence. But the grace of God through breath will blow the cloud away, and the
It
sun will
will.
come back in. And we just have to be willing to move the cloud out of the way. And that's what emotional release, as I call it in my books, and moving the energy in getting grounded can do for us. And that's a way that we can develop and cultivate self-compassion.
Well, Reverend Jim, how do you handle moving through emotional energy?
I do the 7 steps in my book, Pathways to Inner Peace, and that chapter is so pivotal to growth and healing, I find, that I actually forklifted that chapter 6 from Pathways to Inner Peace. I practically forklifted it, typos and all, to chapter 9 of The Soul of Prosperity, and that is the 7 steps of emotional release. Number 1, have the emotion, which means being aware of our emotional state at all times. Number 2, honoring the emotion. And as you said, instead of judging the emotion, honoring it as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to heal, and as a discovery of a hidden blockage to our prosperity. Number 3, honor ourselves for having the emotion. Do not in any way think we are less than because we've had an emotion that, from a spiritual judgment perspective, we might want to say, oh, I'm human, I'm having a tantrum, I'm like a baby, or anything like that. No. Honor yourself for moving through your process. Number 4, release the emotion. Do whatever you find to be necessary, as like Malcolm said, by whatever means necessary, allow that energy to move from you. And number 5, ask, what was the error in my thinking, or what was the story behind that emotion? Number 6, ask for a miracle. A miracle is a shift in perception that would cause you to know the truth instead of the story that you clung to that triggered you. And number 7, rinse and repeat. Do this
I love it.
regularly. The story comes up. So
that is perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect, man.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, it works.
I also want to make a statement about that we had talked about righteous indignation.
Yes.
In this new age we're in right now, people are feeling that there are things that are right, and there are also things that are wrong.
Yes.
And when things are wrong, they're righteous about them being wrong. And when there are things that are right, we're righteous about them being right. But we get caught up in all that righteousness, and we don't have peace.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what that does? It separates us, fragments out, and seems to dissolve love instead of uniting us, which builds love. I'm judging this one. I'm judging that one. I'm mad at this one. I'm mad at that one. And what is happening? All of the love that is within each and every person, and all of the love that we were designed to come here to magnify, gets fragmented and diminished instead of getting built upon when we are in righteous indignation. What if we had compassion?
So how do you coach and advise people that are caught up in that righteousness and feeling it viscerally in their bodies?
I ask them to focus on themselves. You know what? It's a wonderfully fun spiritual parlor game to keep pointing the finger at everybody else outside of you. And I'll use you as an example because you chose not to point the finger at your wife when you got. I love that story. I might use it in the sermon. I won't call your name, but I'll use it in the sermon. You chose not to make your wife the problem. You chose not to make her yapping at you the minute you got in the door of the problem. You chose to look at yourself. So that's what I coach people to do. What within you is triggered? What is the story within you that I don't say that you want to cling to. What is the story within you that causes you to be triggered? But now that you taught us all that how fragrant these aromatic stories are, I might say, so what is the seductive story that you are trying to cling to, that's trying to get a hold of you? I might use that if you don't mind. But what I coach clients to do is to say, what within you has been triggered? What is the story? And then I ask, what is the truth? Obviously, this is a story for where the truth, you'd be happy and fulfilled and peaceful and joyful. If it's a story, it's triggering you. If it's a story, it's worrying you. If it's a story, it's making you angry. If it's a story, it's making you anxious. So what is the truth that would bring you back to peace and love?
I do love that.
Yes. And when you find the truth, be still and let the truth correct the errors of your mind. What would the truth look like in your world? And this helps to ground that new energy. What would the truth look like if the truth were outpictured in your world instead of the story you chose to cling to? What would that truth look like? What would harmony with that person look like? What would building on a platform of love with that person look like? What would appreciating the 39 years that you've had together look like instead of berating the 5 minutes where she yapped at you the minute you got in the door? Amen?
Amen. Amen. Well, you know what it would look like is that it would be nothing but love.
Yes.
There is nothing but love and appreciation.
Yes.
And peace.
Yes.
You know, there's nothing but and passion.
Yes. Compassion is with passion. Amen.
Yes.
And so what you've done is you've cultivated compassion for yourself, compassion for the other person. You've built more love instead of dividing and dissolving love. Does that make any sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. It makes all the
Yes.
sense in the world. Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that we can cultivate compassion. Cultivating compassion for ourselves actually translates into cultivating compassion for and with another. So let's do another one. What about someone who is attacking us in some way, criticizing us, judging us, putting us down, making us feel less than? How do we develop compassion for ourselves and them? Let's play with this one for a moment for our viewers.
Well, that's a good one, because we all have been in those situations where we've been attacked or judged.
Yes.
And we all know what that feels like. It's a visceral feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I'm an advocate is that when that feeling takes us on, that when we're feeling we have to defend and explain ourselves, instead of going into defending and explaining, you know, be aware that there's nothing there to defend, and there is nothing there to explain.
Amen.
You are the space. And once you have awareness of that space, that person that's judging you and attacking you and I mean, because I'm married, as I said, 39 years, I get this all the time. You know, when that person, my wife, is on me for whatever reason she's on me for, you know, there was a time when I was younger and immature that I would get into defense and explanation mode. But now I realize that she's been hurt or she's frustrated, and she somehow is wanting to take it out on me.
Yes.
And you know what? I can handle that, because I realize I'm aware there really is nothing wrong.
Yes.
And I'm not the brunt of her discontent. She's the brunt of her discontent. And if I can just, without being righteous with her, just allow her to express herself, and even in judgment of me, allow her to express herself. You know, that moment will move.
Yes. Let's break this down, because this is delicious. This is so delicious. I don't even need to eat dinner tonight, because this is delicious. This is my spiritual food. And let's break this down a little bit, right? Okay. So Ed gets home, and instead of getting yapped at, he gets attacked because today was garbage pickup and he forgot to take out the trash this morning. Amen?
There you go. There you go.
Okay. So he got attacked. Now, what's the first thing that would happen if we were less spiritually evolved?
Well, we're
We
not
would
spiritually evolved in the first moment. By the way, we're defensive.
You're defensive. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to do the reflex of defending
Yes.
yourself. But
Yes.
then you're going to take a breath. Amen?
Yes. Yes.
Then you're going to take a breath. And once we take the breath, we realize, and these are words from A Course in Miracles that restate what Ed already taught us, which is nothing real can be threatened. Nothing
That's right.
unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. So what is real? What is real for Ed after he took the breath is he's no longer the 13-year-old boy being fussed out by his mother and made to feel 2 inches off the ground for something he didn't do or something he wasn't. Amen? He's no longer automatically shuttled back to that.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's not real, because that boy doesn't exist anymore. That boy and that experience disappeared.
Well, the trigger is not going to go away. I just have to put awareness on it.
Yes. That trigger is disempowered. Let's put it that way.
There you go. Yes.
He has disempowered that trigger. So that trigger no longer has the power to be the scary monster. Amen?
Absolutely.
So he's no longer in 13-year-old boy getting fussed at by his mother, not feeling like he's enough, fearful that he's the 2-year-old or the 1-year-old or the 2-month-old, not getting the love that he needs to survive. Therefore, he doesn't feel threatened. Amen?
Absolutely.
Nothing, that is not real. Nothing real can be threatened. The real him is the eternal, unconditionally loving, unconditionally loved, unconditionally lovable being. And his wife is not talking to that being. And his wife is not who she really is in that moment, right?
No. Yeah, that's
the wife is not, your wife was not the beautiful, beloved goddess of light and love that bore your 2 babies that she is in that moment.
Yes.
In that moment, your wife was frustrated, angry, and hurt because you not taking out the garbage was indicative of, if he didn't take out the garbage, he must not hear me, he must not see me, he must not love me, and I don't feel loved. And when I don't feel loved, I'm going to act out in order to trigger him to get the love that I believe that I need. Amen?
Reverend Jim, you sound like you're married. That's the way it works, man. That's just that. That's the working on yourself of being successfully married. You've got to allow yourself to take the moment that you would have gotten triggered in and be aware.
Yes.
And be aware that your partner's having a moment herself.
Yes. And your partner is not who she is in that moment, and you don't need to go into who you aren't in that moment, because then you've got 2 illusions fighting with each other over nothing.
Absolutely.
Amen?
Absolutely.
But when you step into your higher space, you can be the light that invites your partner to step into her higher space. So you having compassion for yourself, compassion in this instance being a deep, loving awareness and acceptance of yourself in your truth as beloved of God. That compassion for yourself gives you new insight and therefore new compassion for your partner as well. Absolutely. And you see her as the beloved of God. And that's why, as we were saying earlier, that's how we multiply love instead of dividing and dissolving love. Amen?
No, I hear you. You know, when my wife and I have these moments, when our egos, our woundedness is conflicting and judging and attacking each other.
Yes.
The benefit of being married 39 going on 40 years in June is that I can look at her, and when she's in her rage and realize that's not who she is. And she can look at me and my defensiveness and realize that's not who I am either.
Yes.
And what we're able to do is, which is really beautiful, is that we let go, and next thing you know, we're giggling and talking crap to each other.
There you go.
I mean, it's and we can tease each other about what we were wired up about. we can just, let go of the moment and find something more pleasant to relate to with each other. But it really
And you
is
know
a
what?
process.
And you know what? Sometimes you even forget what you were fighting about in the first place.
Oh yeah, most of the time, yeah. I was like, what was I? Oh yes.
What were we fighting about? What was this all about? Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So what you just saw, folks at home, was you just saw the art of compassion in action. Compassion for self, compassion for another. And it built and multiplied and amplified the energy of love. Now, why is this so important for prosperity? Because prosperity in all of its forms are just the different forms that love takes.
Yes.
Love is the formative power, force, and source for all of our good. For all of our good is simply different expressions of love. Different aspects of prosperity are simply different expressions of love. So, in order to build prosperity, you have to build love. And compassion builds love. Does this make sense, folks at home? So, with that, we're going to take a break and we're going to come right back and we're going to share with you some news and some new surprises here on the New Thought Media Network. So we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. So now it's time for some new business, some new surprises, some new ideas. What are you working on these days, Ed?
Well, I've got a lot of things working. I'm going to be teaching on the MYOB platform every other month. And I've generally decided that I'm going to teach, I'm going to really dig deep into non-duality, which I think is much of what we were talking about tonight. The Course in Miracles is non-duality. So I'm going to be using some, Advaita Vedanta tools. I'm going to be using other tools, meditational tools, to try to really get people to really relate to the power of the non-dual teaching. I'm also going to be, in the next couple of weeks, and I don't know the date, going to be preaching at the Helena Church of Religious Science in Montana, and I'm looking forward to that. And that's also part of the NYOB group that I'm doing classes on. So I've got a couple of new things. Plus, as I've been talking about, that my podcast is coming out very soon also. So I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm excited about that.
I can't wait to hear you preach, because I bet you can preach the paint off the walls. I can't wait. So how do we get in touch with you, Ed, so that we can find out what's going on with you?
There's a lot of content, a lot of information for me on Instagram. So SoulTranSync is my website. It's also my Instagram, and it's also my Facebook, SoulTranSync. It's at the bottom of the screen here. But you'll find a lot about what I'm doing, what I'm involved in. I also recommend my book, Uncovering and Embracing Soul Power. It's a wonderful book that has a lot of tools in it toward self-healing and self-evolution. So, and it, just like what we talk about with in this podcast, it's all about self-love. So I'm really excited about more people connecting with the book, me using the book as a context in this every other month teachings with MYOB, and that's the future for me.
Beautiful.
How about, what are you involved in lately?
Lately, I'm involved in some new classes. My January classes, creating a vision board that's self-manifesting, named after my book. That class was sold out. So was my January class, Your Personal Prosperity Prescription. That was sold out. But I've got some new classes that are open now, beginning on March 20th and 23rd. On Mondays, we're going to do Spirit Speaks More on manifestation. And then on Thursdays, we're going to do merging manifestation methods. You know how if you put two things together, 2 + 2 can equal 6? Well, when you merge manifestation methods, 2 + 2 can equal 6. And so I'm going to do a class on how we can merge all the powerful manifestation methods in a way that magnifies them all. And these are 6-week classes that begin on the 20th and the 23rd of March. And you can find out more about them on my website, www.revjimwebb.com. And I want you to keep your eyes open for a new promotional special for my book, Prosperity from A to Z. I'm going to be doing a buy one, get one free, where you buy one copy of my book, and I'll give you a copy of another of my ebooks for free. Now, even if you buy one, you can gift it to somebody, and you can get another copy for free. I'll have more information out on this in the next few days, but it's another way for you to help spread the word and for you to get one of the ebooks that you haven't gotten yet. Perhaps you've gotten Prosperity from A to Z, but you haven't gotten Create Your Own Self-Manifesting Vision Board. And you've meant to get that too, where you can buy Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board and get a copy of another ebook to gift to someone else. So you get the word and you spread the word. And this is how we all enhance our prosperity. So those are some of the things I'm working on. So I look forward to the next month, and I look forward to all that you're doing too. And I want to thank you, Ed, for spending your precious time. My audience so appreciates you, and we're so glad you chose to spend time with us this evening. So thank you. And
I love
we'll
you.
Be back.
I appreciate you so much.
And likewise, my brother. I'm just so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy to be here with you here on the New Thought Media Network.